thank you everyone for joining us today. This is a bit of a different session for us. It's a panel session all around future-proofing your career. And at the end, Rich, our Chief Engineer, is going to give a bit of a demonstration on React technology. So we are recording the session today. We do want you to ask as many questions as you want to or you feel to using the Q&A functionality. Anything that we don't get a chance to go through today, we will follow up on email. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Lorraine, who is the moderator for today's session.
Thank you, Karen. So good morning and welcome everyone to our session here on future-proofing your career and introduction to React development. Thank you, Daisy, Sarah, and Richard for being on the panel. There's something interesting about the three of you and something you have in common. So Sarah, you are a test engineer, Daisy, a software engineer, and Richard, a chief engineer. Who would have thought you can be an engineer working in the tech sector? And so we'll start with Sarah. Sarah, what is a test engineer and what does a typical day look like for you?
So yeah, I am a test engineer, or also known as a tester. So that entails verifying the quality of development and also uncovering bugs. And on an average day, I may write functional or automation test scripts, which details how to interact with the system in a way that may find bugs in it. Or I might be executing those tests, which is actually running through the system and finding bugs or verifying that they aren't on where I'm looking. So yeah.
Okay, and what does a typical day look like for you?
So a typical day, I might be writing automation tests, which is like coding, and that's telling the program, that's telling the test suite to run through the system, or I might be doing that myself, or I might be going through it functionally and finding, stuff like that.
Cool. Awesome. So you have to have an attention to detail to do that job, I take it.
Yeah. You have to take like a critical eye to the system that you're looking at. Also a lot of collaboration with devs and BAs like yourself. So yeah, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And Daisy, I often hear more like a job title software developer as opposed to software engineer. What is the difference between the two roles, if there's any? And what do you love about being a software engineer?
So I think historically they've been seen as quite different things. So a software engineer, you'll have degrees that you can do to become a software engineer. But personally, the role that you play as a software engineer versus a software developer, they're pretty much the same. You are writing code, you're building things, you're running things. So to me, there shouldn't be a difference. What I love about it, so I love that I am able to be creative to solve problems that are presented to me, and that I'm able to take what is effectively nothing and build something out of it, like creatively building things. That's the really exciting part for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Daisy. Richard, chief engineer. How does one become a chief engineer? If you like, just briefly summarize how you got to this point.
Yeah, so I think I can really relate to some of what Daisy's just shared there, that they're building something out of code and turning it into something tangible and real that people can use is what first got me excited about software development. And I picked up a couple of software programming languages, some frameworks. I learned how to get projects in front of people and get them being used. And then from then, my career kind of just stepped up a notch little by little to the point that I started working in some quite large organizations like the BBC or Sky and in some super exciting projects that got consumed and used by millions of people. it's not just the scale of the software and the user base itself, it's also the scale of the organization. Sky, for example, very large. Some of the clients that we work with here in BJSS in Leeds are very large. So being able to see that software being built by multiple teams, sometimes multiple tribes, if you know what a tribe is. And how does that all fit together? How does that all tie together? And how do you show a little bit of leadership and guidance in those scenarios? That's exactly the kind of things that I was really excited about, passionate about, and really try to drive forward in those various settings. So that's kind of how I got to where I am.
Awesome, thank you, Richard. So Sarah, your journey into tech wasn't the typical route. What I mean by that is people think you have to do A-levels in computing or a degree in computing before you can get into tech. So your journey wasn't that, was it? So could you just give us how you've got to this stage that you're in your career?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was going to university for biomedical sciences, and I kind of realized that the subject and even university wasn't really for me. So I ended up dropping out, but at the time I knew quite a few people who were in the tech industry, and I realized that, you know, that might be something that I'm more interested in going into. So at that time I started looking up stuff in my own time, like basic Java development, that kind of thing. And I started looking for apprenticeships because I realized it would be a good way to get qualifications and some experience in the field. So going down that path, I ended up finding BJSS. And yeah, so I did my apprenticeship at BJSS, went through the academy with all the graduates and everything. And I ended up completing my apprenticeship and staying on at BJSS and realizing that testing was an area that I was really interested in. And I really loved that whole sphere of everything. So yeah, I'm really happy with where I ended up.
Beautiful. So BJSS have committed to 80 new roles to accelerate the recruitment of school leavers, returners to work, university graduates, apprentices. So that's fantastic that you came in through the apprentice route, Sarah, and you're thriving now as a test engineer. Fantastic. So Daisy, what would you say are the skills required to succeed as a software engineer?
I'd say that the skills required are not so much technical skills. Those are good. It's great if you are able to learn a language and understand it. So like programming languages and different things in that area. But to me, what I'm looking for in a person who is to be a software engineer or developer or what have you, is that curiosity and that ability to think out of the box and analyze a problem. So it's not about how much you know about something, it's more about yourself and how you approach the issue that's in front of you. It's a very creative process, and looking for somebody who's going to think outside of the box and ask questions, that's the most important thing to me.
Beautiful. So what challenges do you face in the role?
Well, it's not exactly an easy role, but that is kind of why people enjoy doing it. It's not simple, but it's also not boring. You'll get lots of different challenges when you're working as a software engineer. So you might be asked to build something, but it's not necessarily going to be straightforward. You're going to have to ask a lot of questions to drill down into what it is that you're actually trying to achieve with what you're building. You'll also be constrained, say, by the technologies that you're using. So while that is a challenge, it's a challenge that I find quite fun.
Cool. Also, you talked about asking questions. As a business analyst, I get to ask lots of questions, and that's why I like it. You know, when you're growing up, you ask questions, you probably get into trouble as a kid. Why, you get in trouble. But as a BA, we get to ask lots of questions, and I like my role because it's a varied role. So one day I could be eliciting requirements from a customer or a client, deciphering what their business needs are and what business applications could meet those needs, drawing pretty pictures about the business processes, working with the development team comprising of software engineers and test engineers to develop that solution to meet those business needs. And so it's a very, very varied role. That's why I like working in tech, because it's varied. That's why I like working as a BA, again, because it's varied. And that's why I like working in a consultancy, because it offers that variety. So speaking about a consultancy, so Richard, why do you think working in a consultancy has its advantages, and what do you like about, or what do you love about working in a consultancy like BJSS?
Yeah, sure. I've actually just recently written a blog post just about this, so feel free to go and find it and have a look. But yeah, I think there's so many different projects going on. Even in Leeds alone, we've got, say, 50 different projects running across probably around 20 or so different clients. And what's really great is that you get to come to one of these new projects afresh in a completely different domain, something that you didn't know about before, and you get to immerse yourself in that new world. So we're doing a lot of healthcare related work right now, and that's kind of new for me. And it's so exciting to be in a area that's so relevant right now. We're doing some COVID related work, and be able to contribute to that team, and sometimes not in just the ways that your job title says, but actually finding out, how can I help? How can I contribute? How can I make this project succeed? And being able to see projects delivered in incremental chunks really gives you a great experience, opportunity, but also that feeling of satisfaction that you've delivered something of value to the client, but also to those folks that are going to end up using the products that you're building. So that's why I've really enjoyed being in a consultancy, and also by surrounding myself with lots of other really talented people. And I super enjoy that, because there's always stuff to learn.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Richard. So some people think that you have to be well established in your career before you consider a job or a role in a consultancy. And I'm hoping that if you're one of those people, what we've been talking about today, that's far from it. That's far from it in the slightest. Okay, so let's speak to people. Let's speak to people who are considering their career in tech, or they've just started. Let's speak to them. Let's give them some advice. Okay, let's start with you, Daisy.
So from my perspective, it's not necessarily about your background up to the point of you coming into technology. So it's more about you and your drive to solve problems and your drive to be able to be creative. And it's about that mindset of asking questions and how you think through problems, as opposed to, I have this much technical experience. So I've done a couple of graduate interviews in the past year or so, and what I've been looking for when talking to them is not necessarily how much they know, but how they approach the problem in front of them, and are they willing to ask questions? Are they willing to admit what they don't know? So that honesty, that integrity, that passion to learn, to think outside the box, that's what's important to me.
Beautiful, thank you, Daisy. And Sarah, what advice would you give?
I think one piece of advice I would give would be to have faith in your own potential. When I realized I wanted to go into tech, I didn't really have any of the skills that would be, I guess, on paper required for, going into a technical field, and I wasn't qualified either in it. But if you know what you want to do, you can build on yourself. If you've got the right mindset and aptitude, then you can go and find what you need to get into a position where you can do what you want to do. So yeah, I would say just have faith in your own potential.
Beautiful. Have faith in yourself. Yeah, more than capable. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Richard, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think just to balance the sort of skills about driving yourself and who you are, but in balance to that, also thinking about the practical ways that you can learn, what I really recommend doing is looking at a website of an organization that is hiring into tech work roles. So BJSS is a great example of that. Look at the roles that we're advertising. You know, it might be a business analyst like Lorraine, it might be a test engineer like Sarah, or a software engineer like Daisy. And look and just see what sort of skills that you need in order to deliver or apply for that role. And just think, out of those roles, which are the ones that I like the sound of? What are the ones that you think, oh yeah, I could kind of see myself doing that? It may be even a project manager. But if that's the case, look at those skills. Find out some courses. There's some great courses in Udemy. There's some great blog posts around that can teach you how to gain these skills, and just invest a little bit of time. It doesn't need to be a huge amount of time, but I certainly recommend putting, you know, maybe 5 hours a week, maybe 10 hours a week if you can. And within 10 weeks, at 10 hours a week, you'll have 100 hours of experience, enough to have an opinion, enough to know if, hey, this is something I really want to explore even further. And once you get the bug, as it were, it's something that you just continue exploring more and more. And that's exactly how you can launch a career into tech yourselves. I've just recently been working with a recruiter friend of mine who's decided that he wanted to pick up JavaScript and become a software engineer. And just over this kind of downtime that he's had through furlough, he's been able to pick up those skills. And software engineering and a lot of these skills are all skills that you can learn at home. You can learn through resources online. And if you do have the opportunity to get a mentor, then I really recommend that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. I'll ask that. And if you decide, okay, this is the role I want to do, and after some time you think to yourself, you know what, I don't want to be that anymore. It's absolutely fine. That's the beauty about working in tech. You can reinvent yourself. So if I don't want to be a business analyst today, and I want to be a software engineer like Daisy, she's convinced me to be one, then I can. There's so many resources out there. The beauty of it is they're accessible, and most of them are free. Think about the University of YouTube, yeah? And then we have a fantastic Leeds digital community to support you as well. So yeah, that's the beauty about working in tech. So Richard, there's something called React, which you're going to show us today. You're going to show us what React is. You're going to what you can use it for. I'm going to see a little demo of it in use. So over to you, Richard.
Yes, thank you. So hopefully you will be able to see my screen. Please give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Great. So this is React. What we're going to be running in a few weeks' time is a course on React. So React JS is a library that's written in JavaScript for building user interfaces. And user interfaces might seem a bit far out there for some of the new folk here, but just think about it as interactive websites. And so today, and indeed for quite some time, the base of most websites is pretty simple makeup. Of course, they can get more complex over time, but what I'd really encourage newcomers to focus on is just the simple building blocks that you need to get a little bit of a grasp on to be able to build some interesting projects, initially for yourself even. So if we look here, here's a brand new React project that I've got going. You can see there's an app.js file, there's a styles.css file. And let's just quickly take a look at these because they're pretty much the fundamentals of what we need to get going. So if we look in the app, we've got a heading tag that says hello world, but let's say we want to say hello to women in Leeds Digital. Then we've very easily updated our website here, which we can get some immediate feedback on. This is the markup HTML here that we're editing, but also what sits alongside that is some of the CSS, and this is for making your project look amazing. So if I delete, for example, that text style, you can see it reverts to the default text of my browser. If I, for example, get rid of this, it will then align the text to the left, which is the default. And you might want to do something like change the background color to aquamarine, if that's your favorite color. And it's giving me a syntax error because there's a missed semicolon. So these days the tools are very intuitive. They kind of tell you what you're missing, what you need to do to get things working. And then you can see an amazing welcome in aquamarine backgrounded text. So that's the kind of very basic makeup. And what I'll be covering in the course we see together, probably in the next few weeks, is how can we do some other cool projects that might be able to give you a little bit more functionality. So here's an example of a breakout room. So say you've got a Zoom call and you want to put people into breakout rooms. And I think probably Zoom has this functionality built in now to be able to give you a random list of rooms. But just say for theory's sake, how do we do that? Here we can see that we've got some names. We shuffle those names and then we put those names, that list of shuffled names, into those different rooms. And this is what the markup now looks like, to loop over those rooms and then to put a name into them. So how does that look? We go back to our app.js file that I showed you before, and we can see this breakout rooms. And what we can see here on the left-hand side is that we've got 2 breakout rooms with 3 participants. And every time we reload that, it will give us some different random rooms. So think of an idea, think of something that you might like to show some other people or put be in front of some other users. It might be something like a interest calculator, for example. Can I calculate if I have £1,000 and I save that for 6 years at an interest rate of 5%, how much will that work out in 6 years? Just some very simple things. It might be tools that help you yourself, but we can certainly look at some of those ideas together and publish them on the internet using some of the industry standard technologies that will also give you a bit of a boost in your career. And that's
wonderful, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Richard. So we're going to do, I think BJSS is organizing an introduction to React development session. And Karen has all the details. In fact, I think, Karen, you are going to that bootcamp as well, and you're far from being technical, aren't you?
That's correct. So I think when I first had a chat with Rich about doing something like this, I think really to sort of demonstrate how it is open to everyone. I'm going to have a go myself. So
Awesome.
I've obviously, events and marketing is my background. I am not technical. Just steering around Zoom is probably the limit for me for now. So it'd be great to be part of this session. And yeah, I will share what I learned, I'm sure, in a blog post later on.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. So that's the end of our session. Any questions? If we have time to answer that now, or we could answer them out of the session. Yeah.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, if anyone's got any questions, we will be doing a follow-up after this session with a recording of everything, information on how you can find out more about roles at BJSS, and also the invitation to the React bootcamp that Rich will be running. So thank you so much, everyone. And I just want to say a special thank you to Daisy and Sarah, because it's quite a daunting task to be on any panel, but to do it as part of Women in Leeds Digital at Leeds Digital Festival is throwing yourselves in at the deep end. So great work, and it's really nice to find out more about how everyone's journey into tech was. So
Awesome.
fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.